Oh, finally, how are you, Mr. DeAngelis?
Very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Welcome to Tama's podcast. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, it's great. How about, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Oh, fantastic.
There we go.
Lovely. You look fine. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time,
My
and
pleasure.
especially and especially thank you so much for I'm sure you've done so many interviews over the years, but let's start with the beginning. So, introduce fully yourself to us.
Yeah, my name is Frank DeAngelis, and I'm a Colorado native and went to a parochial school K through 9 and then ended
Mhm.
up transferring, or they closed a lot of the Catholic schools back in 1969. And so I ended up going to a public high school of about 2,000 kids. And then from there, I went to college, and I was the first one in my family to go to college. And originally, I thought I wanted to be an accountant, and just wasn't, my heart and soul was not into it. And it was from there I decided to be a teacher because I had a teacher, baseball coach. I played baseball in high school, Mr. Dittman, and he just related to the kids. And he was like a second father to me. And so I decided to be a teacher. And so I got my teaching degree to teach history. I was an assistant football coach, head baseball coach, and I got hired in 1979 at Columbine High School. And at Columbine High School, I ended up teaching mainly American history, but as I stated, baseball, football coach. And then it was in about, I'm trying to think, about 1994, a dear friend of mine, my mentor, said, "Had you ever thought of becoming an administrator?" And I said, "Why would I want to be one of them? Because I love teaching, I love being with the kids, I love coaching." But he said, "You have some leadership skills." And there was a dear friend of mine, we taught school together, American Studies. She taught the English history, and I taught the history piece of it. And she said, "Your position is changing, but you don't have to change as a person." And she said, "Think of the impact that you could have. Right now, you're working with about 150 students in your history classes throughout the week, and you're coaching about 200 kids. But now, all of a sudden, you'll be in charge of 2,000 kids, and you'll be able to work with 150 staff members instead of the 15 in your department." And said, "Just be who you are. You always spoke through the heart, and continue to do what you're doing." And so I heeded to that. And I was an assistant principal for 2 years. And unfortunately, then in 1996, after 2 years, I was able to apply for the principalship, and I got it. And so I started as principal at Columbine in 1996, and I retired in 2014. And I'll explain why I stayed that long as we go on.
No problem. That's fantastic. I like that in a nutshell to explain your whole journey, professional journey, which is fantastic. I don't know where to start with this because there's so many interesting things to say. But so first of all, Dave Sanders. How long have you known him?
Dave Sanders was a mentor of mine. He went to Columbine in 1977, and I went in 1979. And as a matter of fact, my first year at Columbine, we coached basketball together. But then as time went on, he was just continually being a mentor to me. Our kids went to school together. And then he later helped me coach baseball. I was at his wedding. He was at my wedding, and just a phenomenal human being. And his wife and I just, it's unreal. And he was someone who, as we go on, I can explain, he literally saved my life on that day. But he was one of my dearest friends. And so when I lost him, it was very difficult.
Yeah, it must be. So, as a principal, do you? Because when I grew up in Switzerland, my head of year, I don't know how it works in America. So you have the head teacher, and then you have the deputy head teacher, assistant head teacher, and you have, I just say, head of years. That means each year you have a person, a go-to person that is in charge of the whole year. Long story short, do you get to meet students before they start the school? I mean, how does it work? When you go to Columbine, how does the process work?
Right. And so basically, in what we have in Jefferson County schools is you have elementary schools in which it is K through 8, or
Mm-hmm.
it's actually K through 5 or 6, depending. And then you go to middle school or junior high, And then from there, it's high school. And so basically what happens is we have orientation for the 8th graders and meet with them. And then we do a freshman orientation before they become students at Columbine, and I meet with them. But as far as the bureaucracy, it's the principal, and then you have what they call assistant principals. And then underneath, we have at the high school, you have department managers, someone for social studies, someone for English, someone for science and math. And so we get a lot of input, a lot of community work.
Ah, lovely. Because the what I'm saying is that before I entered high school, I had to meet with the heads of year first to get to know each other. That's how it was then in Switzerland. So I want to ask you, when you first met Dylan and Eric, how were they, as people? How were they like?
They were portrayed in the media as these two at-risk, out-of-touch students, and that's not the students we saw. They were outstanding students. They were in advanced placement classes. They were in gifted and talented classes. And as a matter of fact, the two of them did not meet until Harris' family was in the military. So he actually came to the middle school in 7th grade, and that's when the two met. But these were kids that were at prom 3 days before. They were outstanding. They were planning on going to college. Harris was trying to get into the military. Klebold had got accepted to the University of Arizona, so they were fantastic.
Yeah, so basically they were normal teenagers. When you saw
Oh,
them for the first time, they were, what you expect of teenagers. Obviously, we're all different. I mean, they're all different. You have some that are very smart, some that are finding their ways. So, I read a lot in the media that apparently there was a lot of bullying. Did that happen? Because my understanding is that they had friends.
oh, they had a lot of friends. As a matter of fact, we had our prom, junior, senior prom on Saturday, which I think 17th of April. And Klebold was with his girlfriend and 4 other couples, and they were in a limousine, and they were high-fiving me and dancing and doing everything. And then later we had something we called after prom. And I remember Harris being there, engaging in all the games and activities, knowing in 3 days they were going to try to kill many of the people in which they were in attendance. And early on in their careers, they played soccer together, or they played youth soccer. Klebold was a student that he was in charge of lighting for the school plays and things. So they were not these. I mean, there's certain students that throughout any school, they're loners. These two were not.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, it was over our spring break, which was sometime in March, that Klebold actually went with his parents to the University of Arizona to look at the campus and the dorms and things, because they knew what they were going to do, but they tried to just fool people. They were very manipulative.
Yes, that's one word for it, definitely. When did you start seeing some changes into them too? Is there any red flags that you spotted before this is just teenage phase?
Basically what happened, and they were so good at hiding and fooling people. If they were on a call, they would say, yes, Mr. D, no, Mr. D, very respectful. As a matter of fact, I think it was in 1998, they got in trouble for burglarizing a van,
Mm-hmm.
and they took some equipment. Well, got into the system, and basically they had to do community service and things. But I read the letter that they wrote to the people in which they burglarized. This letter was so sincere. We're sorry. We're not bad kids, and this does not define us. And if we could ever make it up, and even the magistrate or the judge who was in charge of their diversion program said, these are great kids. They learned their lesson. So they had so many people fooled. And we had, even when after the event happened, I can't tell you the number of teachers that came in and said, we never saw that side of them, because what they saw were outstanding students. These kids were not in trouble in high school, other than the burglary of things of that nature. So the way the media portrayed them, they were at risk, they were constantly in trouble. That was not the case.
That wasn't. But the problem that I don't know if you saw my interview with Tom Mauser,
I
the
had
dad. Okay, so basically, what we spoke about, it was there was some, maybe as a principle you may not have seen it, but there were a lot of evidence of the violence, especially the writings and some videos they were making. Um, I mean, was it the fact that okay, it was a creative writing, a creative video, so you guys thought, oh, that's just what they were into?
Right. And I think when you look back on it now, and thinking back to 24 years, almost 25 years ago, it was creative writing and it was videos and things of that nature. Now, in 2023, if we were to see that right away, red flags go up. But
Mm-hmm.
I am not excusing any of this, but basically what happened is it was creative writing, and they brought it to the counselor assistant. This kid had no other. It was one singular incident, and you're looking at this, and it was creative writing. But now looking back on it and saying, "Oh my goodness, you saw this." There was a situation, and I'm not sure if Mr. Mauser told you there was a hit list made by the two, and that was turned over to the police, and they felt there was not enough evidence for anything. But you look back on it after the fact saying, oh my gosh, there's all these warning signs. And so you look at it, and I think there were so many lessons learned. I mean, now I can remember growing up and little kids, they were playing, cops and robbers and, pointing
Mm-hmm.
guns, this type of thing. And now if kids are doing that, from the time they're little kids, we used to play war,
Yeah.
pretend we were in tanks and the whole thing. Back in the day, you didn't think twice about that. It was kids being kids, playing these types of games, cops and robbers and things of that nature, and pretending. But now our society has changed such that you've got to take all of this seriously. And we do have, threat assessments throughout that if these continually show up, that you need to do assessments to evaluate if these kids need help,
Mm.
and the other thing that I think is so important is back then, I know the role that social media plays today. In social media, so many times these students are broadcasting. Well, back then in 1999, we did not have the social media that the kids have today, whether it be TikTok, Instagram. They say Facebook is for old people, but back then the only social media we had were Facebook, or excuse me, MySpace. And
Mm.
so we didn't have those means of broadcasting things of that nature. And the question I would have is if they said to someone back then, boy, I'm so upset, I'm going to blow up the school. And if their friends are saying, yeah, right, okay, here they are again. And now it's kind of like when you go through an airport, after 9/11 in the United States, if you go, I think I'm going to blow up this plane or blow up, right away, you're arrested. Or back in the day when I was growing up, you couldn't make a thing in a theater,
Mm.
stating that I'm going to set off or I'm going to set a fire in a theater. You would be arrested. Well, now any of those threats, whether it be a gun or things like this, I want to kill someone or this type of thing. And I think the most difficult thing at this point is deciding, are there contributing factors that would allow that to happen? And I think that's where we've come so far, so many lessons learned, from that day.